We have a very interesting day, and I think even if you weren't interested in the technology and everything about this, it's very fascinating what the future holds. And the things that we're going to talk about today, I think will really capture your imagination. I think one of the things that we're seeing now is the world is changing, and it's changing at even a faster rate than it has in the past. And there's a lot of remarkable things that are really we're at the cusp of, and it's really driven by the technology and the market advances that we're seeing. If we kind of take a look back and see how we got to this point, if we go back to the 1980s, that was when we first started to see miniaturization. And I can remember at that point I was working at Hewlett-Packard's disk memory division, and they had the washing machine size hard drive. It was 400 megabytes. And they were going to scale the boards down by adding integrated circuits and using VLSI techniques. And that was really the beginning of the miniaturization in the 1980s. In the 1990s, what we saw is the World Wide Web. And the World Wide Web did a lot of things for us. It allowed us to have information sharing in a very different way than we ever had before. Allowed us to communicate with people in very different ways. And it really brought a new focus to software. So it was a shift from very, very hardware intensive to now software is starting to come in and be a very important part of the overall system. The other thing it did at that point was it provided wired connectivity. So it was that connectivity and the communication that we hadn't seen before. In the 2000s really brought the wireless and mobile. And that's when we started to be able to do any place, anytime. The other thing it brought was the first apps. Do you remember when the first apps were developed? Anybody remember? It seems like it was forever. It was just a little over 7 years ago. We had our first apps. And now every day we rely on multiple apps a day and things that we're doing in our everyday lives. So it's really transformed how we do what we do. So the 2010s is where we are now. And that's really about the Internet of Things. And what the Internet of Things does is it capitalizes on that miniaturization, the connectivity, the mobility, the cloud that we didn't know was the cloud, but now is the cloud. And then adding to that, this pervasive intelligence and this that we're going to be using in everything that we have. So that's what we're really talking about today. Now you're on campus, so we can't help but think a little bit about, let's put this in context. So our average student is about 20. So they were born about 1995 or even more recently. How many of you were born in 1995 or more recently? Okay. No, Margaret, you're not. Okay. You can dream. That's one thing about being a professor. You always look at the students and you think you're the same age. So that's why we continue to do what we do. But let's think about this a little bit. Okay, so you're born in 1995. The first apps were built in 2008. So at that point, they're 13. So really, they don't know anything else other than there were always apps. The other thing is they've been used to using Google their entire life. Google always existed. I highly doubt that very many of our students know that we used to have encyclopedias. And you remember Encyclopedia Britannica, and you would have to have it, and if you couldn't afford it, you had to go to the library to look things up. Their world is completely different. They communicate pervasively. They don't know any different. They communicate all the time. Shutting down is not really part of what they're used to, and it's 24/7. So what this has created is they're impatient. They have expectations that anything can be done and will be done, and there are no barriers. So I think what's exciting as we talk about the Internet of Things, and this is where we can work together, is that these students who are our next generation of leaders are really going to actually push and drive what we do. And that's why we all need to be engaged. We need to work with you in industry to understand where the push is going to be, but we've got a push coming from our students saying we can do more and there are no barriers. So it's a very exciting time, kind of sobering to some of us who have seen this evolution. And so, you know, we kind of like, okay, this is hard, here we have to go again. Students don't have that limitation. So let's talk a little bit about, you know, you're all here because you probably already know about the Internet of Things. And the exciting thing about the Internet of Things is it really crosses all of these barriers. It crosses every application you can imagine. You know, vehicles, our pets, you know, pets have become a more important part of our everyday lives. You know, now we're going to be able to track our pets. We'll know what they're doing. I'm not sure why I want to know what my cat's doing, but I'll be able to do that. Agriculture, that's a big area. The 60s, late 60s was prime time for agriculture. That's when we saw huge increases in productivity. Now we're going into a new period for agriculture where using precision techniques and sensing and monitoring is going to change and make the productivity even higher to feed the world. Energy, we know that you're going to hear examples today of the smart grid and how it's changing how we do things. And what it's allowing us to do is to have the same amount of energy and do so much more. So it's very exciting in terms of how that will affect our lives. Security and surveillance. Okay, that's just scary, and you're going to hear more about security is everything. Buildings and the homes that we live in, I'll give an example of that. So it really crosses everything, and probably one of the most exciting things that will affect our lives is in medicine. And we know that we're just really early on how Internet of Things can really help with the medicine side of things. It can help extend our lives and our lifestyles. So let's talk about one example, and then I want to give you a framework for how we're thinking about the Internet of Things, and this is what we'll be using as our framework all day long. So I use this title, IoT Supporting Smart Living, and maybe some of you have seen the AT&T ad for smart living. And so the way it goes is this son and his wife come in their car, and they're going to the parents' cabin, and they get there, and the dad says, oh, how did your trip go? And he said, oh, we stopped at the house and picked up a couple things. And then you saw the dad go, oh, did you turn off the lights? Did you, close up the house and lock it? Oh, yeah, we took care of that. And then the dad pulls up his cell phone, looks, and then fast forward, you see the house, and the music's blaring, the lights are all on, the water's running, and the dad shuts it all off remotely. And so that's their vision of a digital smart living. And so the reason I use that example is I think it illustrates the parts and the framework that we're going to talk about today. So first of all, we have sensory systems. So we had to sense that the water was on, and then it would indicate through the phone, yes, the water is on, and the lights are on, and the locks are not locked. The IoT systems is the overall system of this, and you'll see a lot of new IoT systems that we're basically proposing and have market opportunities that we would like to work with industry on. The software systems and infrastructure are really, they're the blood that connects all of this thing. It's the nervous system that connects the brains with the sensing. It's absolutely critical. And finally, there's the data intelligence and visualization. So that's the smarts part, and it includes activity recognition as well as taking this information and turning it into actionable types of things. And you'll notice that across the bottom I have security, and that's because security is across all of those. And as Ron mentioned, security is a major issue for Internet of Things because we're going to be so much more exposed with so many more things connecting to the web. So I know I'm preaching to the choir on all of this, but I wanted to give you this framework because our breakout sessions and our organization of our talks will be based on this framework. So if we talk about what strengths does industry have and what strengths do the universities have? This isn't an exhaustive list, but I wanted to just kind of point out a couple key things. Market intelligence. Industry is really good at sort of knowing, for the most part, knowing what's going to happen in the future and projecting that and saying, here are the markets and here are the sizes and here's where it's going to go. That's really important, and that can actually help direct research that we're doing at the university. You have deep technical knowledge. You've done a number of cycles on products. You know what worked and what didn't work and what needs to happen. Product execution and scaling, that's what industry does to a T and does it extremely well. The other thing is industry drives economic growth. So it's really important to our nation that we have this economic development and economic growth, and industry is really responsible for that. Now, if we look at the university and specifically electrical engineering and computer science, entrepreneurialism are us. And the reason I say that is that, being in Oregon, we're always challenged with do more with less. And I think what that's done is it's brought this pioneer in us out. We didn't come across the Oregon Trail, but we basically are trailblazing. And we've had to move fast, and we have to learn, and we have to continue to have these cycles of learning, and that's really about being entrepreneurial. So we've had a number of startup companies, we've been entrepreneurial in our education, and we've been entrepreneurial in our research. So that's what we want to bring to the table. In terms of our research, we have a lot of new ideas. We have a lot of federal programs we've been part of, and we don't have constraints that you might traditionally have in industry. We still have constraints, but they're different. So we can think about ideas that might not seem practical right now, but could evolve into something practical. And John Wager is going to talk about transparent electronics and the revolution that it's created. Trust me, I had a dean from Berkeley come here 15 years ago, and he said, that's not going anywhere, it's a dead end. Today, it's a multi-billion-dollar business. So sometimes we need to explore things that might not seem practical. We creatively educate the next generation of technology leaders, and I think one example in the last few years is our industry friends were coming saying, we need more software people, we need more software people, and we had constraints. And so what we did is we created an online program that basically we become a net importer of computer science talent. They get our education, our program, they come and visit here, and they don't want to leave. And so that really is an innovative program. It's one of a kind in the country, and it's changing computer science and the kinds of people coming into the field. And then finally, collaboration's in our DNA. So we love to collaborate with industry. We do a lot of it, collaborate with other universities, and then collaborate across the university. So I want to talk about this a little bit. As a land-grant university, really the basis of land-grant is that it really came out of educating the common people. So prior to that time, it was only the privileged, white privilege, that could have an education. Land-grant is about reaching out, helping to make things happen, being connected, and educating people, and not just for the privileged. And so OSU is a land grant, and as part of a land grant, it typically includes agriculture and engineering. So we're really fortunate. In the middle there is engineering. I guess we're kind of saying we're the center of the universe, and if anybody else in the college university were doing this, they'd put them in the middle, so just, in full disclosure. So, and what you see is on the right-hand side, forestry, oceanography, and agriculture. We have really top-notch programs in the country in these fields, and we've really benefited from that. So for today, you will see examples from the Internet of Things that specifically our collaborators are in that area. And it's environmentally based. Those applications actually apply to a lot of other markets, and that's part of this market-driven part from industry that we're talking about. On the left-hand side, you see the medical side. Vet Med, you'll see an example of actually testing some of the new ideas we have using our, in collaboration with our Vet Med school, pharmacy and the public health. So we have a real strong core there. And then science and liberal arts have been really at the base and at the root, and a lot of collaborations with them that we're very excited about. We have excellent colleagues there. And then business and education, we couldn't do it without them. So spinning out these companies and the effort that business has helped us with. And then education has really helped us with our pedagogy. So even as we think about our online program, they're right there helping us with how do we advance not only how we do it online, but we become leaders. So we've really depended on our colleagues across campus, and Internet of Things that you're going to see is really colored with this collaboration that we've had. So let me talk a little bit about a model for this. And if we start at the right-hand side here with leverage unique strengths. So I talked about what the strengths are, and in particular, industry has this market understanding that really can be brought to bear. And we're going to have an example of that today. Christian Lay from Intel is going to talk about a joint project that has been OSU and Intel, where we really have leveraged these strengths that we have. So Intel has this market intelligence. They know how to turn products. They know how to build hardware. They know what the opportunity is. What we had is a great technology and really the research that's going to back it up to build it up to be more. So we partner in that way to leverage our unique strengths. Another part of this in terms of building a research to market collaboration is having an end-to-end test bed. So one of the things that's different about the Internet of Things is it's a complete system. It's really changed. It's basically, it includes the edge node of the sensor. It includes all of the system itself, the software infrastructure that needs to be there, and then all that intelligence. So one of the goals we would have is to build the end-to-end integrated solution so we could do a plug and play. So now if you have a new sensor, you can plug it into this end-to-end test bed and you can test it out with the data analytics and the whole infrastructure already in place. So that's a really exciting way that we could work together to do this. And then together with this, what will come out of it is innovative solutions and economic impact. And as a land-grant university, we're always looking at how can we increase our economic impact. We educate a lot of great students who go out and work at companies, but we can do so much more, and that's what we want to work with you on. And finally, what happens out of this is our collaboration. We have more innovation and we prosper overall. So the companies win, the university wins, the state wins, the nation wins. It's really a complete win-win.